Hello and welcome to another episode of Coding with Noah. My name is Noah, and today we're going to be going over what an Arduino is and how to upload code to an Arduino. So let's get started. What is an Arduino? An Arduino is a computer used for building and prototyping electronic projects. It's cheap, and I say cheap because you can get it anywhere from $4 to $20 on eBay, and it's real time. And the reason I can say it's real time is because the only code that it executes is the code that you write. So let's go over the parts of the Arduino. The first part that I want to go over are the pins. Pins are pieces of metal that stick out of the Arduino. So if you were to remove the black plastic on the Arduino, as I have in the picture, you would notice that there's pieces of metal there. And there's two types of pins. There's actually more, but there's two main types of pins. There's input pins and output pins. Input pins sense electricity running through them, and they're used for sensors like temperature sensors and humidity sensors and motion sensors. And then there's output pins, and they're used to output electricity, and they're used to control things like LED lights and servos and motors and things like that. One thing to note about pins is that they're labeled. So the pins that we can control are labeled 0 through 13 and A0 through A5. There's other types of pins that we'll be using throughout the series, but those are the ones that we can control. The other thing to notice about the Arduino is that there's a big red button. Go ahead and press it. That's the reset button. And what happens is every time you press that button, and the Arduino has power, the previous code that was on the Arduino will restart. So that's like the restart button. The other thing to note about the Arduino is that on the top part of the Arduino, you'll notice that there's 3 LEDs. And the two that I want to focus on right now are labeled RX and TX. RX means receive and TX means transmit. Whenever the receive or RX LED is lighting up, that means that the Arduino is receiving a message from the computer, and whenever the TX light is lighting up, the Arduino is transmitting a message from the Arduino to the computer. The other thing to note is that there's an LED kind of toward the end of the Arduino, and that's marked L. That's the built-in LED, and that's connected to pin 13. So whenever pin 13 has electricity, it will light up. And the big chip on the Arduino, yours might be different because every Arduino is different, but in this model of the Arduino Uno, the big chip is the brain of the Arduino, and that's the Atmega chip. Go ahead and connect your Arduino to your computer so that we can upload code to it in the next section. So you're going to want to download the Arduino IDE, select your OS, and then click the Just Download button. Once you have your Arduino IDE installed, you'll see something like this. Go to Arduino and Preferences, and you'll definitely want to turn on Display Line Numbers. I've also increased my font size to 20, but that's up to you. So with all that being said, let's get started. The first thing you'll note is that there's two functions in the Arduino IDE. There's the setup function and the loop function. The setup function code runs only once, and the loop function code will run forever, basically. It'll just restart over and over again until the Arduino loses power. So the setup function, whatever's in between these curly braces, is the code that it will run. Same thing for the loop function. Void just means that the code or this block of code will not return anything or output anything. This part is the name of the function, and optionally, functions can take in arguments. There's a few built-in functions that we're going to learn. The first one that's already built into the Arduino environment is called pinMode. So it's pinMode, and capitalization is important. The first argument that it takes in, or data that it takes in, is the pin number. In our case, we want pin 13 because that's the pin that controls the built-in LED. And this is how you control the type of pin, and that's the second argument. What we want for the second argument is output. So we want this to be an output pin, meaning that it can we can control whether the pin has electricity or does not have electricity. So this block of code will only run once. The next block of code is the loop function. And we want that to run over and over again. And that's exactly what it'll do, because we want it to blink over and over again. So the first function that we're going to write is digitalWrite, and that's used for turning on and off electricity in pins. So the first argument in digitalWrite is the pin number. In our case, that's 13. And then we have two options. We have a high and a low. High will turn on electricity, so we've just turned on electricity for pin 13. The other function, one of the other functions that's built in to the Arduino is delay, and that will pause the Arduino. And the number that you put in the delay is the number of milliseconds that it'll pause. So in our case, we're putting 1,000 milliseconds. So this will pause for 1 second. The next thing we're going to write is another digitalWrite, and this time we're going to turn off the electricity in the LED, and that will turn it off. And then we'll wait another 1,000 milliseconds or 1 second. So with all that being said, this should blink the Arduino IDE. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to save the file. So I'm going to go to here and click save, and I'm going to say hello, or pin 13 LED blink, something like that. Okay, cool. So now that we have it saved, notice that we have this checkbox, and if we click this checkbox, it lets us know that the code compiles. And then if we want to upload the code to the Arduino, we would click this upload button. But before we do that, we want to make sure that the Arduino IDE knows which USB port the Arduino's on, and that we have the right board selected. So we're using the Arduino Uno board in this tutorial. So you'd go here to board, and you would select the board you're using. I'm using Arduino Uno, so I have that selected right here. And then I would also go to ports, and I'd make sure my Arduino Uno port, and this is the USB port, is selected as well, and it is. So now that I know my board is connected, I can click the upload button, and that will upload the code. And what you can see right now is that the Arduino is blinking every second. So I would just go ahead and play with this code. If you've never coded before, you can just copy and paste values in, change values, do all that stuff. So have fun with this, and I will catch you in the next video where we'll be lighting up external LEDs. So I'll see you then.